Why, hello everybody, how are you doing this fine day? I hope you're enjoying your week. Welcome to another survival challenge. And you probably think it's a little weird that I'm making another Helldiver survival challenge since I literally just made one. But for whatever loopy reason, I don't know, none of us can really understand it, YouTube has done its crazy algorithm thing and blew up all of the videos on my channel that are focused on Helldivers. I guess it's just their time to shine an algorithm this week. So I figured I might as well take advantage of this opportunity while it has presented itself to me. And if I'm going to shill, I might as well shill fucking hard. And if you enjoyed the video, make sure to like, subscribe, comment, share, and join the membership. Remember, if you join the membership, you get videos early. But I'm wasting enough of your time. Let's get started. Now, we're going to do things a little bit differently than I have been doing in my past Helldiver survival challenges. In those past videos, I just took the Helldivers world and then chucked a bunch of random armies and people into it to see how they would do and how they would survive in the Helldivers world. But if the algorithm is pushing me in a direction to keep doing this shit, I might as well change it up and make it interesting for me. You know, keep me entertained. Keep me interested. So today what we're going to do is we're going to Planet of the Apes this bitch. You ever seen Planet of the Apes? Not any of the good ones. The one with Tim Burton. Tim Burton made it and Marky Mark's in it, that one. Anyway, if you've never seen that movie, I'll explain it to you. Marky Mark is a dude and he gets into a ship and goes into space and then he gets caught in this weird storm and the storm spits him out, and when he gets spit out, he crash lands on a planet that's Earth but not really Earth, like it's a Earth that's covered in apes. And the movie does an absolutely fucking terrible job in explaining any of that. Don't worry about it. It's not important. What is important is that I'm stealing that very basic concept and I'm giving it to a Helldiver. What were to happen if a Helldiver were to leave Super Earth on his way to go and fight some communist automaton scum, and then on his way to get there, he gets lost in some sort of cosmic storm, and then when he pops out, he realizes, oh shit, the planet I was supposed to go to with the automaton communist scum, they're not even there. The planet doesn't even exist. What's going on? I can't get in touch with base. I can't get in communication with anybody. What is happening? So then he flies back to Earth and realizes when he gets back to Earth, it's not the same Earth. It's not Super Earth. It's the Earth of some other universe. And this is where the interesting part of this video comes in. We're gonna have to kind of determine, based on very little information that the game gives us, what a character like a Helldiver would do if he is put down into these alternate universes from these other games. Because we only ever really see how a Helldiver behaves in the universe that is Helldivers with Super Earth and the communist robots and all that kind of shit. If you remove all of that and he's just left to his own devices to be chucked in some totally different world, how would a character like that behave? What happens when you take a character who's a massive extremist and essentially worships his government like a god, but then remove his government and remove his planet and remove his people, and now it's just him? What happens if you take a Nazi out of Nazi Germany and put him in a world where Nazis never fucking existed? What a fascinating concept to explore. And that's what we're going to be exploring in this video today. In this challenge, this particular completely nameless Helldiver is going to arrive to this other universe with all of the stuff that his normal destroyer would have. He's got all his weapons, all of his armaments, all of his explosives and stratagems and everything. He's even got his crew there. It's just that ship, them, and this one Helldiver guy being released into the fucking ether to see how they'll do in this other universe. Now, you might be saying, well, there's a bit of a plot hole here, Rouga, because those destroyers actually have a bunch of Helldivers that are all cryogenically frozen. So why doesn't he just wake up the other Helldivers and then they can go and stop being such a smart ass? They all died in the fucking storm. There we go. It's only one Helldiver with this ship and a couple of crew members who can operate the ship. That's it. So, to summarize, what we end up having here is a super extremist right-wing nationalist who is arriving to a planet in a ship stacked with enough weapons to arm a small country, coming back to his home world where everything is going to be completely fucking different. And in this motherfucker's mind, none of these goddamn people belong here. And how would a character like that behave in these new environments that we're going to thrust them into? Cool? I think it's pretty cool. First up on the chopping block, we have the Killing Floor universe, which is easily the most boring one, so let's get it out of the way immediately. And I'm not saying it's boring because Killing Floor is a boring universe, and I'm not saying it's boring because it won't be cool to see what happens. I'm saying it's boring because it's really the most similar to our real world, and to me, the solution that the Helldiver will come to is the most obvious and he'll probably come to it pretty fucking fast. So if you never played Helldivers, basically the world takes place in our real world, or more or less our real world. It's slightly more advanced. It has some cool technology when it comes to guns, mainly due to a response to the actual threat that exists within Killing Floor, which is basically that there was a scientist who created cloning technology and then went insane and started cloning all of his family members as these crazed super mutant things. And then he just like built these facilities all over underground, all over fucking Europe, and then just kept cloning and cloning and cloning and cloning. And then he basically created like a zombie apocalypse, but it's like a super zombie apocalypse because they're not really zombies. They're called specimen, and they all have superpowers. Some of them turn invisible, some of them crawl on the walls, some of them have drills for hands and super strength and can make force fields around their body and all this. And basically what this crazed doctor wants to do is to spread across the entire world until the world is filled with nothing but these specimens that he created based off the DNA of his family, because in his mind, these are perfect specimens as opposed to humans who suck and have been completely surpassed by these specimens that he created. Like I said, relatively straightforward. The only real thing that can happen is that once the Helldiver gets there, he's gonna have to fight against the specimens. It doesn't really matter how he feels personally about how the world is acting or how it differs from Super Earth. There's not really a whole lot he's gonna be able to do with how the Killing Floor Earth differs from the Super Earth that he comes from. Now, normally if the specimen weren't there, he can go there and be like, what the fuck's going on? Why are you guys not all obsessed with democracy and everything awesome and super fascist? What's happening? But you can't really do that when there's a fucking army of specimens going around slaughtering people and the entire world is essentially struggling to ensure that these things do not take over the entire planet. The Helldiver is obviously going to work with humanity to fight against the specimens, because even though this isn't Super Earth, I'm not really 100% sure that the Helldiver would even necessarily know that it's not Super Earth. Like, the confusion part is going to be a factor. Is this Earth? Is this a totally different planet? Am I in a different universe? Am I in a different timeline? Where the fuck am I? It doesn't really matter, because when you have someone as obsessed with Super Earth as the Helldivers are, there will be no answer for him other than to fight against the specimens. So how will that fight go? In the story of Killing Floor, the first Killing Floor game only takes place in Britain, because that's as far as the specimens have gotten. In Killing Floor 2, which I believe takes place 2 months later, all of Europe is covered in specimens. Basically, the spread of specimens is stupidly fucking fast. And I think that the Helldiver is going to figure this out pretty fucking quickly. When he goes down to the earth and starts to fight them, for one, he'll be able to fight them without any issues whatsoever. Like, it's just going to be the easiest shit he's ever done. I mean, the boss monsters in Killing Floor will not be as strong as a single automaton Hulk. And Helldivers kill those motherfuckers all the time. The weapons that the Helldivers bring to the Killing Floor planet are the most powerful weapons that exist within the Killing Floor universe. Everything from his handheld guns to his stratagems. He will literally not come up against a single thing that will challenge him. Having said that, he's still only one guy, so he's not going to be able to stop the spread of the specimens. Once he figures this shit out, he's going to do the next very obvious thing that all Helldivers do. So one character trait that Helldivers have, and just all of Super Earth as a whole, is that they're super gung-ho about killing innocent people. They're okay with sacrificing their life for the good of Super Earth. They're okay with civilian casualties. They're okay with sacrificing lives if it means that Super Earth as a whole succeeds in whatever it is they're doing. I would argue that Helldivers are a little too okay with death. It's not like we try to avoid death, but it's okay if it happens because we're warriors type of people. Like, they're super cool with killing themselves. Like, it doesn't bother them at all. They are completely unafraid of death. They often suicide bomb themselves. They will steer their hell pod purposely, unnecessarily, into an enemy and kill it because they just think it's funny. And that will kill themselves in the process. They just don't give a shit about their own lives or the lives of other people. And if you take that specific personality trait and you combine it with the fact that the destroyer ship the Helldivers pilot is stated within the game to have enough armaments in it to level a small moon, you can kind of connect the dots and see where I'm going with this. It's made very clear in the Killing Floor universe that humanity cannot stop the spread of the specimens. The Helldiver, being only one man, will not be able to stop the spread of the specimens on the ground level. He can, however, get up in his destroyer ship and completely level all of Europe, which will basically guarantee that he kills all the specimens because they haven't spread past Europe as far as Killing Floor 2 goes. This will be a very easy process, and he'll be able to do it very quickly. After he does that, this is where it finally gets interesting. Because now what you end up having is essentially a modern world Earth that has a bunch of weapons that don't come anywhere near the power of the Super Destroyer that is currently hovering over Earth. The entire planet is in a much weakened state because it's just been spending who knows how many months and resources trying to fight these specimens that this motherfucker in a single ship was able to wipe out in an afternoon. And the Helldiver at that point will basically be able to hold the entire world ransom. He will be the most powerful being on the planet at that point. Now, obviously, the Helldiver's first choice would be trying to get back to Super Earth. But if we're going under the assumption that he doesn't really know how to do that, nobody in the Killing Floor universe knows how to send him back, he's just kind of stuck there, the only real thing he can do is try to essentially rebuild Super Earth. And the only way to properly rebuild Super Earth is to essentially become a dictator and force the planet in that direction, which I think is exactly what he's going to do. I think this Helldiver is going to turn the Super Destroyer against Earth and basically take over the planet. He'll become a dictator and guide it in the direction to become Super Earth. Will that go particularly well? Probably not. But again, he has the Super Destroyer up in space, which is the most powerful weapon in the entire Killing Floor universe, and he has a small army up in that ship. When I say small army, it's just the people who basically operate the ship. And at any point, if he goes down to the Earth and they assassinate him or do really anything to him other than obey what he says, he could wipe whole cities off the map. There's really not a whole lot they can do. And he won't have any issues with doing this because these people are not Super Earth. His loyalty is not necessarily to humanity, it's to Super Earth. Do not kid yourself. Helldivers are super fucking fascist. And the whole concept of democracy within the story is all sort of window dressing. It's bullshit. It's a fabrication to make people feel good, but in reality, they're just fascists. And I don't think that this Helldiver is going to be any less fascist when he goes down to this planet. Because even the average Helldiver's idea of what democracy isn't actually really democracy. It's still kind of a super fascist form of democracy. So, yeah. He becomes a fucking space tyrant, which, now that I think about it, this actually isn't all that boring of a universe to throw him in. Space tyrant is pretty cool. Next up, we have the Cyberpunk universe. This one's really interesting, and as I get into why, you're gonna have to kind of like double check me a bit. You're gonna like do what's the two look thing where you look at something real like double. I don't know the word. I don't know words. So I already said that Super Earth is fascist, and it is. It's super, super fascist. Having said that, it's not actually that bad of a place to live. In fact, it's kind of great. In a lot of ways, it's kind of better than where we live. I know this sounds really bad, but like, okay, just look at it this way, right? On Super Earth, they've basically completely gotten rid of poverty. There's no pollution. Everybody is happy. Everyone has a big home. The planet is beautiful and gorgeous and covered in beautiful green plant shit. Overall, everybody seems to be having a really swell time. People are imprisoned for like disagreeing with the government, and there's a lot of rules that are a bit unreasonable, and the way that they've been able to make the planet so perfect is through a lot of super fucked up means, like starting a perpetual war with an alien species so they can siphon its blood for fuel. But despite all that, you can't deny it's actually a pretty sweet place to live. As long as you follow the rules that the government puts forward, which again, I agree, are unreasonable, you can actually live a very happy, successful, great life, which is not at all the case for Cyberpunk. There's a legitimate reason why the Helldivers love Super Earth so much and would die to defend it. It's essentially a perfect place to live on the surface. So you can imagine that when the Helldiver arrives to this Earth in Cyberpunk and sees that it's basically a fucking dystopian hellscape, he might be a bit tiffed about it. That's a word, right? Tiffed. Whereas Super Earth is super fucking fascist, like really fascist, but still kind of a cool place to live. Cyberpunk isn't necessarily fascist. It fucking sucks to live there. Like for 99% of people, it's awful. And then there's like a couple of people up top who are having pretty cool lives. So when the Helldiver arrives to Cyberpunk, there's really only one option that I see, and that is he's gonna become a goddamn terrorist. Now, don't get me wrong, he's not gonna see himself as a terrorist. He's probably gonna see himself as a freedom fighter. But he is for sure gonna be a terrorist. He's gonna do everything he can to try and get this planet to be where it should be. But unlike something like Killing Floor, where it would pretty much be really easy, it's gonna be a lot harder in Cyberpunk. Cyberpunk actually has a lot of pretty damn advanced technology, and a fight between a Helldiver and some of the people in Cyberpunk is actually going to be a much closer fight than it would in something like Killing Floor. I mean, don't get me wrong, the Helldiver's still gonna win. His guns are still more than powerful enough to shoot through basically anyone who comes into contact with him, including the big tanks and all the giant weapons of war and all that shit. His weapons are shooting right the fuck through them. But that doesn't mean they're not going to be a fucking problem. I don't necessarily think that his method of using the Super Destroyer to hold the entire planet hostage is going to necessarily work this time, because arguably they actually have the technology to shoot the fucking Super Destroyer out of the sky. No, I think he's gonna have to use guerrilla warfare to actually become like a legitimate terrorist, boots on the ground, going after Arasaka and all of these other groups, which would be really fucking cool, because then you'd have a lot of stuff like a Helldiver meeting up with Rogue and actually accepting jobs and becoming kind of like a solo. And just based on a Helldiver's training and equipment, he'll be one of the best solos in the entire universe. I really think you're gonna see a very cool story where a Helldiver is gonna try and overthrow Arasaka and take over Night City. And then once he does, or if he does, he will then work on taking over the rest of the world, same way he did before. Now, will he be able to do it on Cyberpunk? I don't really know, probably not. I think it's a little much to ask for one dude to be able to do this. I think best case scenario, he might be able to take over Night City and then turn Night City into his own sort of little super Earth. And for the most part, he has the skills and weapons to successfully take over Arasaka, overthrow them, and then take over the rest of Night City. The only real person that'll be a challenge to him is going to be Atom Smasher. And while, yes, Atom Smasher is physically far superior to a Helldiver, the Helldiver's weapons are going to be more than powerful enough to deal with Atom Smasher. You're going to notice this a lot as I talk about Helldivers. They are very much so glass cannons. They're dudes with weapons who are so much more powerful than they themselves are capable of ever being. So do I think that a Helldiver is going to be able to defeat Atom Smasher? Yeah, I do, because, I mean, they have so much experience fighting automatons that are considerably faster and stronger and smarter than they are. And yet they are still able to overcome with just the sheer variety of different armaments that they have. I mean, one well-placed shot with an autocannon will completely destroy the entire top half of Atom Smasher. So I don't see it being much of an issue for him. As long as he doesn't go out of his way to try and fist fight these motherfuckers, he should be fine. Also, another thing that's very important, the Helldiver armor is super strong. It's made out of the same titanium alloy that the Super Destroyer is made out of. And the Super Destroyer can, like, enter and exit planets and go through the fucking atmosphere, as well as travel across the galaxy at massively faster than light speed. So it's pretty strong stuff. While in the Helldiver's universe, this armor is only strong enough to defend against a couple of shots before it starts to really do damage to him. It's going to defend against a lot more in the Cyberpunk universe, as long as no one's using a tech weapon, because tech weapons are a totally different level of power. Those will absolutely go through the armor. But honestly, even if the task does become too much for the Helldiver, and there's just things that he can't overcome, he can start getting cybernetics and becoming vastly more powerful and strong enough to keep up with all the different mercenaries and shit that he finds in Night City. And we know that he's open to doing this because there are actually Helldivers in the Helldiver universe that have robotic parts. And a Helldiver will have absolutely no issues with fucking up his own body for the good of Super Earth or to bring back Super Earth. They're very self-sacrificing people, as I've gone over already. And this is where probably the greatest strength the Helldiver is going to have when it comes to Cyberpunk. A Helldiver will be completely immune to cyberpsychosis. In Cyberpunk, if you've never played or you don't know anything about the story, basically there's this concept called cyberpsychosis. And the story, it's not real, but the story that people tell you in Cyberpunk is that if you have too many cybernetics, it can make you go mad and you can acquire cyberpsychosis, so you need to be careful about not putting too much cybernetics in your body. This is propaganda that is spread throughout Cyberpunk 2077, but that's not the reality. The creator of the tabletop game has already said, in reality, there's no such thing as cyberpsychosis, and cyberpsychosis is literally just regular mental issues that people have. They only call it cyberpsychosis because when people have enough of the robotics inside of them and they're strong enough to fight back against the government, they claim that it's cyberpsychosis, when really it's just regular psychosis from these people being driven mad from the horrible conditions that they live in. And this cyberpsychosis is used as propaganda to tell people so that they don't fill themselves up with way too many cybernetics to the point that they become a danger to companies like Arasaka who run things. There is not a world that I could possibly see a Helldiver going mad by how horrible it is to live in Cyberpunk. The Helldivers are super fucking suicidal, get thrown down to what they claim is like literally hell. That's why they're called Helldivers, where there's just 4 dudes who have to fight literal armies, watching their friends die in front of them, all kinds of horrible shit they have to go through. I mean, Malevelon Creek, anybody? 27 million dead Helldivers. And they don't really seem to care. It's actually kind of funny because where you would normally think that a Helldiver being such an obsessive extremist, it would actually be a weakness. But in this particular case, when it comes to cyberpsychosis, no, their religious obsession to Super Earth basically kind of works the same way as like someone who was a Christian to kind of get over their trauma works. Like, because they have something to ground them to, i.e. Super Earth, and they're fighting for that particular thing, they're willing to put themselves through every horror you can imagine, and it just doesn't tend to affect them as much. So if a Helldiver did start giving himself cybernetics, he could basically be as limitless with those cybernetics as Atom Smasher is, and he doesn't really have to worry about going insane from the world that he's in. He'll be perfectly fine, and he's very likely to become the most powerful cyborg in all of Cyberpunk 2077. So, do I think he'll take over Night City? Yeah, probably. It's not going to be as easy as Killing Floor. He's going to have to go through a lot of shit, but he definitely has the firepower, the weapons, and if he's willing to get cybernetics, which I'm sure he is, he'll become really one of the strongest people. I mean, you think V is a powerful mercenary? You ain't seen shit yet. I mean, this Helldiver is going to be fucking impressive. Next up, we have the Stellar Blade universe. And let me stop you right now. If you haven't played the game, you don't want to get spoiled, move on to the next section. People have bitched at me in the past about spoiling shit, and I usually ignore it, but I mean, Stellar Blade is a relatively new series, so I give you it. I give you it. So what makes this one so interesting is that Stellar Blade is a relatively nuanced universe. In case you're unaware of how the story works, basically, you play as this character named Eve. It's an android that's up in space that was created by this AI called the Mother Sphere for the sole purpose of protecting humanity. Humanity is bound in this one little city called Zion, and all of the humans all across Earth who have been driven to extinction by this species known as the Natiba, that is this weird mutated alien thing that came to Earth and started slaughtering all the humans, and it's like a whole thing. But plot twist, those humans actually aren't humans. Those are androids that were created by the Mother Sphere, and the Mother Sphere created those androids to fight and destroy the humans, and the humans, out of desperation, because they thought they were going to be wiped out, started genetically experimenting on themselves, and they turned themselves into what we know as the Natiba. So the giant monsters that are the Natiba that you've been killing the whole game are actually the good guys, and the androids in Zion, who you think are the good guys the whole time, are actually the bad guys, although they don't know they're the bad guys because their mind was wiped by Mother Sphere, because Mother Sphere wants them to replace what humanity used to be. The game gives you this nuanced decision and makes you kind of have to pick a side where, who do you kill? I mean, like who do you side with? Do you side with the Natiba, who used to be humans and turned themselves into monsters, specifically because they were being wiped out by this invading force? Or do you kill the invading force that is the androids who don't actually remember ever doing that and are pretty good people now, and for all intents and purposes believe they are human? It's a complex moral dilemma that a Helldiver isn't gonna give two shits about. So here's the thing about extremists. They're not capable of seeing nuance. That's what being an extremist is. It's basically the same thing as an absolutionist. There's no wiggle room, there's no gray area. There just is what is, and whatever is good, and everything else is bad. When the Helldiver arrives on the planet, the assumption will be that the androids are human, and the Natibas are these creatures, these monsters. If he ever finds out that the Natibas are actually humans, and the humans are actually androids, his decision will be made crystal fucking clear. He's slaughtering all the androids. He wouldn't see them as any different than the cyborgs or the automatons from his world. It doesn't matter how good they think they are, they overthrew humanity. The Natiba would then be the species that is the new form of humanity, the species that he would have to side with, whether he necessarily wants to or not. Really, the only question is he actually gonna get far enough to figure all this shit out? Because the Natiba are considerably stronger than he is. His whole glass cannon situation with him easily being killed in one hit but having these massively powerful weapons kind of hit their limits when it comes to the Natibas. His weapons are not going to really be all that effective to them. He is considerably weaker than somebody like Eve. The only real way he could survive on this planet is if he basically does nothing but just continuously use stratagems on any Natiba he comes across that isn't like the bare bones weakest versions of the Natibas. He is going to be carpet bombing this fucking planet constantly. He doesn't have any choice. Even his most powerful handheld weapons are not going to do anything against an Alpha Natiba, and sure as shit isn't going to do anything against an Elder Natiba. And a lot of the Natibas have feats that have them moving at the same speed or even faster than light. He doesn't really compare to that. He won't even be capable of hitting them with his guns. Like, it's going to be such a one-sided fight. His only real option is to either be murdered or to become a Natiba himself. Either one is possible. And considering Helldiver's self-sacrificing nature and their willingness to just throw themselves on the grenade for Super Earth, I can absolutely see him purposely becoming an Natiba so that he can then better fight against the enemies that he needs to in order to bring about what he wants to, which is essentially bringing Super Earth back into this world. I can see his plan being wiping out all the androids, then joining the Natiba and trying to lead them into the next generation. Will he actually be selected for that purpose? No, he won't. In Stellar Blade, the Elder Natiba actually chooses Eve for that mission, and Eve is not going to turn the world into Super Earth, which means the Helldiver is going to have to stand up against Eve, which when he does, he's going to get fucking killed. He is nowhere near the power level of Eve even before she becomes Elder Natiba. Afterwards, there's no chance. I'm not really sure the stratagems would even help him all that much. But even if the stratagems did help him and he was able to wipe out Eve, that doesn't necessarily mean that the Elder Natiba will suddenly choose him to be the leader. And then the Elder Natiba might just fucking kill him. So he's kind of fucked here. The only real way of him surviving is if he's okay with basically Super Earth dying and he's just gonna have to move on with his life without Super Earth. But with as much of an extremist as the Helldivers are, I just don't see that happening. So yeah, he's probably gonna die. Last up, but certainly not least, we have the Mass Effect universe. Now look guys, I like Mass Effect. I like it a lot. If you would have asked me, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago what my favorite series was, it's very possible I would have told you Mass Effect. So just know that when I say that Mass Effect is weak as fuck, you know that I'm not being biased. Yeah, there really is no getting around it. This is not a particularly powerful universe. It's not that they don't have a lot of really cool, overpowered technology. They do. It's just all limited by real-world physics, because the creators of the game and the writers of the game wanted it to be as realistic as possible. For instance, the guns in Mass Effect can shoot damn near at light speed. Now, you would think that if you fire a bullet at light speed, the sheer force that it would create would essentially vaporize everybody in the fucking room. Now, any normal sci-fi universe would be like, no, it's fine, just let them shoot at light speed, it's okay. But in the Mass Effect universe, they gotta explain that shit, and they gotta explain it with science. So all the guns in the Mass Effect universe basically have like a mini mass relay, which decreases the mass of any object going through the chamber to damn near zero, so that it could basically travel as fast as it fucking wants without, you know, the whole force formula. Mass times acceleration whole thing, it basically takes the mass part of that and makes it super, super low so that the speed part of that can just be as high as it fucking wants to. And this is kind of the way it works across all the different technologies that exist within the Mass Effect universe. Every time you see something really fucking cool where you're like, that's broken, 9 times out of 10, it has an explanation for how it's not actually as broken as you think it is. Everything from the stasis field to the Mass Effect fields to all the crazy biotic powers and shit to all of the weapons to how ships can travel at light speed, literally everything. And it works so hard at making all these cool technologies as realistic as possible that it wraps right back around to being actually really fucking weak. It's so weak, in fact, that the big bad of the entire franchise, the Reapers, the beings that every single species across the entire galaxy all has to come together to build the mightiest army that has ever been just to face off against, that at the end of Mass Effect 1 takes an entire army and the full might of the Citadel just to take out one of these motherfuckers. Yeah, at the end of Mass Effect 3, they gotta send several dozen of them just to take out one city on Earth. Yeah, they're really not all that impressive. I mean, the whole plan that the Reapers want to do is to wipe out all biological life in the universe. They send a whole army of these things in, and you'd think by them being worshipped as a fucking god by the Geth and all this bullshit, that one Reaper would show up on a planet and just wipe the whole thing of life. No, they're just like regular ships that are more powerful than normal ships. When they come down to Earth, they just start shooting lasers one at a time, destroying building by building. It's so fucking unimpressive and underwhelming. And again, let me remind you, this is the strongest being in the entire Mass Effect universe. When a Reaper shows up, everyone has to fucking drop everything to deal with it. It's not like just a normal ship. So why is all this important? Because if we look over to the Helldiver side of things, and you see that a single super destroyer is stated to be able to level a small moon by itself, and that they have nuclear warheads and all sorts of crazy shit, and the Helldivers have even blown up planets at times when they need to, it paints a pretty clear picture that our Helldiver is going to be fighting way below his fucking weight class in the Mass Effect universe. He's going to be flying around this universe in the absolute most powerful fucking thing that exists. His ship single-handedly is going to one-shot every single Reaper that he comes into contact with. It's not even going to be close. He should honestly be able to take on all the Reapers by his fucking self. I'm not even sure if the Reapers are going to be able to damage his fucking ship. It's going to be like the episode of Young Justice when Mongol showed up with the War World, and every single superhero on Earth had to drop everything they were doing to go deal with this one fucking planet. Yeah, that's what the Reapers are to the Mass Effect world, but that's what the destroyer ship is to all the fucking Reapers. The difference in power level is insane. Now, having said that, does that mean that the Helldiver is going to come to the Mass Effect universe and take over the whole fucking galaxy? No, it's a galaxy. It's way too big. So what do I think is actually going to happen? I think the Helldiver is going to become a space pirate, basically. But not necessarily a space pirate, but like a space pirate cult leader? Let me explain. The Helldiver is going to get to the Mass Effect universe, and all the Reaper shit isn't really going to be able to be ignored by him. Like, he doesn't want the Reapers to come in and just destroy everything and take over everything. Like, that's not what he wants. So he's going to fight against the Reapers. And honestly, with him being there, they're not going to be that much of a threat. Because like I said, he can wipe out basically all of them by himself. Just his existence there is going to make the Reaper threat not really all that much of a threat. What's going to happen after that point between the Helldivers and the Mass Effect universe is going to be really interesting, because if you ever play Mass Effect, Mass Effect's whole story is very much so about all of these different super racist species all coming together to fight against this Reaper threat out of a necessity, and all of the races learning that they need to understand and know each other because they all need each other to survive. It's a huge theme of the story, especially Mass Effect 1. It kind of teeters off after a while. But basically, the entire Mass Effect universe is about different prejudices across different groups. Every single species is a super racist asshole, which I think is interesting when people constantly keep fucking saying that Ashley is like a space racist. I'm like, did you play the fucking game? They're all racist. That's what the story's about. She's actually one of the least racist characters, because her racism just comes from ignorance and not really knowing how to interact with other people. Some of the other characters on the ship are way more racist. Are you kidding me? Garrus? He's everyone's favorite character. He's way more racist than Ashley. Anyway, I'm not gonna get into that. I made a whole video a long time ago before I was actually like a beast at making YouTube videos, where I went over the themes of racism and prejudice that are in the Mass Effect universe. Go check it out if you want to, I don't know, go to sleep or something. The reason why these themes are so important and why they're so interesting when you introduce a Helldiver into the mix is because Helldivers, while I'm not going to go as far as to say he's racist, he's definitely a nationalist, and he's definitely very much so for him and his people and not necessarily everybody else. He's not going to give a fuck about the whole kumbaya shit that Mass Effect's got going on with all the different races and groups. He is going to be super okay with going to war with every single species that he doesn't agree with their beliefs, which again goes super hardcore against what the themes of the Mass Effect story are. While Shepard is over here making friends and forming allies and building his army to face off against the Reapers, the Helldiver's not gonna give a damn about any of that shit, and he's gonna be flying around with this massive war machine that no one could stop, and kind of spreading the opposite message almost. If the Helldiver was in the Mass Effect universe, I almost see him replacing the main villain of the series, because the Reapers are no longer all that threatening, and the whole story is about all these different groups coming together, and the Helldiver is easily the most powerful being in the universe with his ship and all of his crazy armaments that completely outdo the Mass Effect armaments, and he'll be spreading the opposite message to what Shepard is spreading. With the Helldiver being here, the entire story of Mass Effect is going to be completely different. It's going to be a really badass story about two opposing factions who are essentially fighting for the soul of the galaxy. On one side, you have the galaxy's greatest soldier, a man whose will is completely unstoppable, who will force his way through any obstacle for the good of not just humanity, but the galaxy as a whole. And on the other side, you have this super fascist nationalist child soldier from another universe with better technology, where his Earth was considered perfect by him, where he is now trying to bring those messages into this new universe. So then the question becomes, can Shepard overcome a Helldiver? And I mean, it depends. Shepard is easily the greatest soldier and probably the greatest warrior in the entire galaxy, capable of matching fisticuffs with fucking Krogan. On the flip side, all Helldivers are master soldiers who know nothing but war and are trained from childhood in the art of killing and are completely unafraid of death. On top of having a ship that no ship of the Mass Effect universe can fight against, and weapons that are considerably more powerful than anything that exists in Mass Effect. And saying all that, it kind of brings up a good question. How would Shepard do if you tossed him on like an automaton world to fight against the automaton hordes by himself? Because that's something that the Helldivers have to do. Would he die fucking instantly? I honestly think it would be a lot closer than most people would think. This is a really, really difficult one, but I really like it. I mean, if you asked me that question, I didn't really think about it, I would instantly say, well, obviously, like, no question, Shepard would win. But if you do think about it for a bit, is Shepard better than the average Helldiver? He doesn't fight as many forces. He doesn't fight as many insanely large, overpowered machines. Like at one point in Mass Effect 2, you fight one big ass mech and it's a boss fight, and you and two other squad mates have to fight it together, and it's like this long drawn out thing. In Helldivers, you could be one dude and fight multiple Bile Titans and take them all out on your own if you wanted to. You could do the same thing for Striders and other mechs. I mean, the equivalent of that mech in Helldivers would be a fucking Hulk. And you can take out a Hulk by yourself. You can take out a Hulk in a couple of well-placed shots. In Mass Effect, you can't. So I'm actually going to do something I don't normally do, and I'm going to leave this up to you guys to determine what you guys think. Because I think if you really sat down and thought about it, you may actually come to the conclusion that the Helldivers, or an individual Helldiver, could possibly be better than Shepard, which sounds crazy to me. But if you really think about how Shepard fights and what he can do, that kind of seems like that might be the case. I might revisit this later in a video. I think you could probably make a whole video about just talking about Mass Effect and Helldivers, what would happen if these two worlds collided. I might do something like that. Kind of like the Warhammer Helldivers video I made, something similar. I don't know. But that's going to be all for me. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to like, subscribe, comment, share, enjoy the membership. Remember, if you join the membership, you get videos early. And don't forget, we have a live stream every Saturday at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. That is the middle of the United States. If you're not aware, like the middle, slightly to the right of the United States, in the Louisiana, Arkansas kind of area. And always remember, y'all stay safe out there, you hear?